What's up, YouTube? Welcome to the channel. If you're here, it's probably because you were thinking about competing in an IDPA match. What is IDPA? It is the International Defensive Pistol Association, and it is a competitive way to fine-tune your shooting skills and have some fun with a bunch of cool people. Highly recommend it. So, what is required for IDPA? Well, that's the cool part about IDPA is the motto is run what you brung, which means that you don't need fancy gear, you don't need to spend a lot of money. In fact, you can compete with what you have at home. Your standard carry rig is fine. You can shoot a small pistol with or without a red dot with your concealed carry inside the waistband holster and get some useful training, or you can gamify it. Now, I think gamifying it is fun. I like toys, I like equipment, and so for that reason, I'm gonna walk you through my carry optics rig for IDPA. One of the dumbest things about IDPA is the necessity to conceal. Now, if you compete USPSA, maybe you're unaware of the fact that within IDPA, you must shoot from concealment. So how do you accomplish shooting from concealment in competition with an outside the waistband holster and mag carriers on your belt? Well, you wear a stupid vest. At least that's what most people do. If you show up at an IDPA match, you will likely see a bunch of people wearing vests, which admittedly look stupid. I'm sure I look like a complete idiot right now, but it does satisfy the requirement of covering your holster and your mag carriers. Now, the vest has to be long enough to completely cover everything on your belt with your arms raised out as a T. Now that is the advantage of a vest, because if you're wearing a jacket or a shirt, you know when you lift up your arms, what's it gonna do? It's gonna bring up the bottom of the cover garment. With a vest, because you have no sleeves, it doesn't really move. So, not my favorite part of IDPA, but you can just get a stupid cheap vest on Amazon or wear a Hawaiian shirt or any other cover garment. Now, next thing you're gonna need is a belt. Now, one thing you'll notice about this belt is it's very stiff. It's a solid core belt. That's by design. This one's from Shooter Connection. It's not expensive. It's very affordable. It's very attainable, and it works excellently. Now, again, if you come from another background like USPSA, you'll know that most of those guys, they have an inner belt, outer belt system. What that means is they have a more flexible inner belt that goes through the loops on their pants or shorts, and the outside of that is Velcro. Then on the outer belt, the inside liner is also made of Velcro, so you can strap it on, strap it off, no problem, leave everything exactly how it is. Now with IDPA, you are not allowed to use a two-belt system. You can only have one belt, and it must go through the majority of the loops on your pants, which means that you will frequently be taking off at least something so that you can feed it through. I use these very inexpensive, cheap Amazon mag carriers. They stick close to the belt. However, the way that they mount is they just loop in, which means that they're basically impossible to take off quickly and easily. So I got this inexpensive Blade Tech holster. I honestly think I paid like 36 bucks for this on benstokerproshop.com. And it has a quick lock mount system on it. So you fold it over the belt, clicks in place, locks down, means that you can take it off and put it on easily so you can run the belt through the rest of your loops. A quick note about holsters for IDPA. No race holsters. They have this dumb rule where essentially with the holster mounted to the belt, they have a wooden dowel that is 3/4 of an inch in diameter, And when they stick it between your body and the belt, the dowel has to be touching your body and the pistol. And so you're running your holster quite a bit closer to your body than some of the USPSA guys would. Now, the other note about picking a holster for IDPA is that whatever holster you choose, whatever safety retention devices are on it, must be used. So what does that mean? If you're trying to be as fast as possible, you're going to want a holster that is mainly just friction retention and not something with like a lock on it or one of those little flaps that goes over the top. You want to be able to draw and reholster quickly and easily with just enough retention to hold the pistol in your holster, but that you can get it out quickly and easily and be on target. What about a firearm? I originally started competing in IDPA with a Glock 19. It was my first pistol that I owned, and it was fine. I decided that I wanted to have a longer grip, something that I could get more purchase on the firearm with. So I decided I was going to build an IDPA specific pistol, and I went with the M&P 2.0 platform. Now, empty mag, empty chamber, gun is safe. The reason that I went with the M&P is simply because it fits me. I went to my local gun store and I held and manipulated several firearms before I found one where it just pointed naturally for me. The grip worked for me. I didn't need a bunch of other modifications, and I quite like this pistol. However, most people who are in the competition space or gun culture in general like equipment and like guns. And what does that mean? It means you're constantly upgrading and being on the hunt for modifications that you can do that might add some bit of an advantage. So I will go over the modifications that I've done to my personal M&P and tell you why I chose those modifications and whether or not I'm satisfied with them. So the very first thing that I did when I got this pistol was I mounted a gigantic red dot on it. This is a Holosun 507 comp. I determined after several matches that an Optic with a big window provided a significant advantage when you are moving fast through transitions. The Holosun 507 comp is a popular choice, as is the Trijicon SRO and the Vortex Defender XL, which I do have, I'm going to be experimenting with on my backup pistol. That may be for another video. I am very satisfied with the 507 comp. However, on the M&P, and M&P owners, you're already aware of this, there is an issue with carbon buildup on the front of your optic. Now, Smith Wesson, in their infinite wisdom, has put a blowhole in the top of the slide at the rear of the breech face of the barrel. Now, what that means is that after 100 or so rounds, you start getting all this carbon buildup on the front of the optic, which begins to obscure the window. Maybe you run an occluded dot and you don't give a shit about that. For the rest of us, a lovely brand named Calculated Kinetics made this dog tag optic plate. So what that means is that the optic plate has a L-shaped ridge that pops up in the front and deflects carbon from the blowhole away from the optic window. What I've noticed since installing this optic plate is that I can shoot essentially an entire match and never have to wipe off the front of my optic. So that in and of itself was an excellent upgrade. The next thing that I did was I installed an Apex trigger. Mine is set up with the lightest competition springs. It's got about a 2.5 pound trigger pull. It has very little take up to that wall right there. And then a crisp, clean break. And then a short reset, break. Actually, the stock trigger on the 2.0, the flat face trigger, was not bad. This is an exceptional improvement, and I like the red color. The next thing that I did after a few matches was that I noticed that for my hand on this grip, one thing I was noticing was having a hard time reaching the magazine release. So I was looking for alternatives to the stock magazine release. Something was just a slight bit more profile to it, nothing extreme. And I went with the Springer Precision anodized aluminum mag release. And again, not expensive. I can drop my mag without breaking my grip easily every time. Now, eagle-eyed viewers will recognize that when I went to do a trigger reset, I hit the back of my gun. And a lot of people will understand that that's because I haven't upgraded Apex barrel on mine. Why do I have an upgraded Apex barrel? Honestly, it's not because of IDPA. My particular pistol was reasonably accurate at close distances, certainly accurate enough for IDPA where 75% of your targets are going to be within 15 yards. But again, we like gear, we like toys, we like to maximize the potential of our guns, and I was able to find an Apex gunsmith fitted barrel. Now, the big difference between the gunsmith fitted barrel and the stock barrel is that it has a very tight lockup. So on the original stock barrel, you know, the recoil spring would hold it back into battery quickly and easily, no problem, each and every time. Because the gunsmith fit barrel is manually hand filed specific to the weapon, it's got a very tight lockup, which means that if you just ride the slide up into position, it doesn't fall back into battery right away. You need less than 2 pounds to push it back into battery. Now, that's only when you're dry firing or manipulating the weapon without actually firing it. When you're firing the gun, the recoil spring will every time lock it back in. I've not had a single malfunction, and I have noticed a dramatic increase in the accuracy of the weapon since I swapped out the barrel. Again, is it necessary? Is it required for IDPA on an M&P to do the barrel swap? Absolutely not. I just wanted a new toy. The next modification I did to this particular pistol was I installed a Springco recoil reduction system. Now, to be perfectly frank, the M&P was already a pretty soft shooter, and I did not have a problem with recoil. But again, if you're trying to maximize the potential of the weapon, there are a number of things you can do. Essentially, it's just a guide rod and guide rod spring replacement. But the guide rod itself has an additional spring at the back so that when you get to the far end of the cycle, there's this extra pressure moving forward. Very similar to the DPM system. The Springco is a little bit less expensive. I tested both. I returned the DPM system and kept the Springco. In my opinion, and for how I felt it, the recoil reduction and the softness with which it shot was more prevalent in the Springco system. Is there a community-wide consensus that these are the best ways to tune your recoil system in the gun? Absolutely not. This is just my personal finding after experimenting on this particular firearm with the way that I grip and fire the gun. The Springco provided a tangible and very noticeable benefit in reducing recoil, allowing me to return to zero faster and get on shot quicker. The final upgrade that I did was I replaced the bottom of the mag with a Floyd's extended base plate. Now, again, not required. I find it very useful. Now, as long as your pistol can fit in the box, then you can have as large of an extension as you would like. With IDPA and the Carry Optics division, what makes your pistol legal is that it be within the weight limit and fit in the box. And the Floyd's Custom Shop extended base plates, they don't add any capacity, and there wouldn't be an advantage to it if they do, considering that for carry optics, you are limited to 10+1 on your first mag and 10 on each subsequent mag. However, I have noticed that when you're doing quick reloads, something about having that meaty, chunky base plate on there just really helps you to slam it home every time. And so that's my carry optic setup for IDPA. I will probably do a different video for my USPSA rig, but I know that when I was first starting out, I was looking for answers regarding equipment, and it wasn't always easy to find. So I thought this might be a helpful video for people to understand what is required and how you can take your weapon to the next level with a small amount of nominal upgrades that will increase your ability to compete. So there you have it. That is my carry optic setup for IDPA. I hope you found this useful. When I was beginning my IDPA journey, I was looking for answers regarding gear and what other guys were running. I was nervous about my first match, and I tried to consume everything that I could about the sport before I went. And I found that there's not a lot of information out there with IDPA specifically because it's not as popular as USPSA. I will probably do a separate USPSA video for my USPSA rig. But IDPA is fun, and it's a great way to introduce yourself to the sport of practical shooting. It is an inexpensive way to introduce yourself to the sport of practical shooting. It does not require $6,000 race guns with every modification under the sun. You can have a tastefully modified, inexpensive weapon and perform at the highest level in a sport like IDPA. And if you found this video useful, I would appreciate a like and a subscribe, comment if you like, and I will see you on the next video. Now I've got to get all the guns and shit out of my kitchen before my wife gets pissed.